Okay, guys. So I got a couple quick updates for you on the DeviantArt debacle. This is kind of seems to be evolving pretty rapidly. I would also like to make a correction to my video yesterday. Apparently, I gave them far too much credit. I had assumed that they were creating their own AI model using their own data set. And while it doesn't render what I said incorrect, in reality, what DeviantArt has done is they have just put a stable diffusion portal on their website. And what that means is that that is the Lion 5B dataset. So me assuming that DeviantArt was going to make their legitimate, well, not legitimate, their own image generator with their own data set and actually train it was giving them far too much credit because, as we will see, everything they have done has been incredibly lazy and beyond poorly thought out. So, going forward, just keep in mind that is what we're working with. It is essentially stable diffusion in a portal on DeviantArt that nobody, and I mean nobody, asked for. So, the main crux of what had happened in the past day or so is that when they rolled out this portal that had the community absolutely livid, if you wanted to opt out, which very quickly is meaningless, all it does is put a piece of HTML in your image that very politely asks future scraper bots to don't use it in their model. So you might as well just put a poop emoji there and at least we can have a giggle. But they had kind of set it to, if you want to opt out, which again is meaningless, you would have to manually check a box. You have to check a box for every piece of artwork you make. And who has time for that? And again, it's completely meaningless. So they got completely destroyed. An absolute onslaught, a mega tsunami of backlash. And they came out with a tweet that said, "We hear you. We hear you. We have changed everybody's checkbox to automatically checked," meaning you opt out for something that is meaningless. And them thinking that the art community is so stupid that you think that that has any value, because you opting out by checking on that, it doesn't opt you out of the training data set that they're using on their portal, not remotely. We don't know how to make freaking algorithms forget yet. It doesn't work that way. If you want to remove something from the data set, you need to remove it and retrain the whole thing. So obviously you checking that box doesn't have shit to do with shit. The only way you can absolutely guarantee that any new work that you've put up on DeviantArt since the Lion 5B dataset was finished being compiled is to delete your account. And that's not even a guarantee because there's such things like Wayback Machines. So this opt-out checkbox, and I'm not going to harp on this, but I just want to be very clear, is essentially, as far as I'm concerned, digital gaslighting. So there was a phone call, and you see the screen right here, which I've had kind of sitting here, haven't discussed it yet, but this was between RJ Palmer, absolute legend, and incredibly passionate advocate for ethics and artist rights here. And he was on a call. It was basically like a 1-on-3 here. He was getting tag teamed with the CEO of DeviantArt, Modi Levy, who did not appoint himself very well. His arguments were terrible. And no matter what he said, it just, all I heard was like, we want to make money. We want to make money. And also on the call was this woman named Liat Carpel. And she really was trying hard to sell that this whole like ethical angle to it, where she kept saying, yeah, we know it's stable diffusion, but we're adding these tools in there, this opt out, or this way for creators to not have their name be used as a style prompt, which when you hear that, like, oh, that sounds good. But the fact is, it's a process. It's not very easy. You know, whatever, bureaucracy, it's definitely not you click a button. And the simple fact of that is, even going through that process doesn't remove your artwork from the training set. So again, kind of meaningless. And no matter what RJ would say, He kept coming back to make solid points, because there's a simple argument here that you're implementing stable diffusion that artists have been railing against, but then you're saying we're not doing that thing that everyone hates, but then simultaneously using the thing that everyone hates to do the thing that you say that you're doing that isn't what everyone hates. Does that make any sense at all? So it's gaslighting, it's corporate doublespeak, and it really shows how little they respect the intelligence of artists. I mean, I think they need to understand that we're pretty freaking well informed at this point. The arguments and conversation have moved away from in the very beginning, where it was very emotional, a reaction that artists had to these tools, understanding something wasn't right about this, but not having the information to really articulate what was wrong with it. And in the months since then, we have learned so much, and we do understand what's wrong with this. We do understand the flaws here, and we also can see a path towards fixing this. And that brings me to the end of the phone call, after they were done interrupting him, talking over him, gaslighting him. Again, I was yelling at my screen, and from what I read on Twitter, many others yelling at their screens as well. So finally at the end, this gentleman named Jules spoke to RJ and pretty much gave RJ the floor. And he said, "Okay, RJ, tell me your best case scenario here." And he laid it out very simply. He said, "Look, you roll this out slower, right? You completely trash the Lion 5B data set. That's a non-negotiable, right?" He didn't say that, but to me, that's in any plan, that's the first step, right? So you trash that data set, and you communicate with your community about what your plans are, and you create an opt-in model where people have time, and you message this constantly, right? You bombard people with this message. We are creating this AI tool. Our goal is to legit create the first ethical model for AI art. If you would like to be part of it, and you would like to opt into this, you can go on your art and you can uncheck this box, which will allow us to opt that piece of artwork into our training data set, because on X date, we are going to start doing the training, or on X date, we plan on finish the training, and then we will roll this model out however long it takes, whether it's 5 months, even if it's a year. We would wait. So he basically says, basically lays this out like, lose the data set, create your own ethical one, let everybody opt in. However long it takes, people will really see that for what it is, because what you're doing, you're talking a good game, but the substance of your action completely conveys an entirely different thing. And he said that in a very nice way. And he was very patient with them, which is better than I would have done. At the end of what he said, this guy, Jules, he seems like he's an actual human being, but I'm not sure how much power he has over there. Jules said, yeah, I could see how that would be what you guys would want. And very shortly after that, they just cut the phone call off. And thank you so much, RJ. So pretty much in summary, the bullet points of this since yesterday, or a little further back than yesterday, they rolled out their freaking AI model real quick without even a heads up, as far as I know. Were met with an incredibly swift backlash about this opt-out in particular, but really it was about the entire thing. The simple inclusion of this was what had people up in arms. The whole opt-out thing was just the extra piece of dog turd on an absolute shit cake. The backlash they got on Twitter was a mega tsunami. People started deleting their accounts en masse, which made them have the brilliant move of, well, we're going to reverse that by making everybody automatically opted out with the meaningless checkbox. Meaningless checkbox. And then nobody bought it. Nobody bought that shit for a second. Not a single person said, oh, well, then it's okay, because we can all see this for what it is. Again, art community, very well informed. DeviantArt CEO people really think we're just absolute idiots. Some of us are stupider than others. But I can read and I can retain information at least on a fourth grade level. So it is what it is. And now here we are. And that's seems to be the current state of this DeviantArt debacle. And I would like to add my own little piece in here that says, you know, if, just if, they had done what RJ said, right? What we all would want them to do is just move this fucking horrible data set. It just sucks, man. It just sucks. It is the source of so many of the problems that we have. I mean, there are more problems, but this is the big one that we can point to, where I think we can all kind of come to a compromise. Say, whatever your feelings about AI art, if we can just get an ethical data set, I think that's a good compromise. Because if they had done this, I, for one, and I know the people in my Discord, I know other artists out there, we would be very happy to not only applaud them for this undertaking, but to then finally engage this tool. I know for me personally, the reason I don't use this tool is because no matter how careful you are with your prompts, there's no way to guarantee that you're not plagiarizing another artist's work. Its black box nature prevents you from truly understanding what pieces of art are being used to create whatever it makes based on your prompt. And I think that's the problem a lot of artists have. Like, we don't want to plagiarize. As much as people say, well, the machine uses reference just like artists do. Come on, guys. Like, you know, that's like an absolute false equivalency. I don't need to get into that. But we also don't want to plagiarize. Like, I'm not going to copy someone's painting into my Photoshop file and start cutting pieces out of it, and then take another dude's painting into the Photoshop and cutting pieces out of it and then pretend I made something. Like, you know what you did. This mechanism just hides that from people, so they kind of don't know that you're pretty much, there's a strong chance whatever you've had generated is on some level being plagiarized. And that's why most artists don't feel good about these tools. So my point in that is that if there could be a tool created where I know for certain that the data set was, trained on public domain and opt-in materials that are ethically sourced, and I can use this tool and not have to doubt myself. I mean, forget about the fact that if I used it, I didn't make it, but there's a chance, or most likely I would just use it to make bits. I wouldn't generate final pieces of art with it. But just knowing that what I had made in the thing was not unethically sourced would mean that this is a tool that I can put in my bag. And I think this is something that a lot of these big companies, and look, that's what they are. They're huge companies. They're in the business of being in business. OpenAI is seeking $1 billion+ valuation. Midjourney is a business. None of these companies are run by artists. DeviantArt is owned by Wix. It is not run by artists. These are business people. They don't give a fuck about artists. But if they had just taken the time to just think about this for a second and understand that maybe if we do go about this right, then there wouldn't be this whole debate. Artists would have adopted these tools. Now, honestly, some people would have been resistant because there is the whole like, well, I don't feel like I made this, and they're placing value on craft, and I do ascribe to a lot of that, but we're kind of past that. I'm looking for a middle ground. I'm looking for a place where we don't have to fight anymore. I'm looking for a place where we can all kind of come together and just say, like, this is what it is. This is an ethical tool. And, the level of its performance is a side issue as to it's just built on just theft on a mass scale. I called it Grand Theft Arto. I know that's corny as fuck, but that's really what it is. I mean, it's essentially the theft of billions of pieces of IP and some public domain stuff that is legal. But if they had done this, I would use the tool. If they said that this is what we are doing, right? Not the big companies, now back to DeviantArt or really anybody for that matter, and said, this is what we are doing now. I would have waited. I mean, shit, whatever. We waited our whole lives for, well, we haven't waited for it, but we haven't had this thing our whole lives. Like, I don't care if it's 6 months, if it's a year down the road. I say, okay, in a year, I can adopt AI art generation tools into my workflow. That gives me a year to really crush my fundamentals so that when I do get that tool, I'm ready to incorporate that in the most meaningful and effective way possible. But they didn't do that. They just decided that it was their right. Now I'm talking about every other company, not DeviantArt, that it was their right for some reason to vacuum up every single thing on the internet. Public domain was not enough. Artwork that you had commissioned, which they didn't do any of to my knowledge, maybe it's possible, wasn't enough. And you just felt that, well, this is progress and we need to vacuum up every single piece of artwork that ever existed from any person, living or dead, and put it into our trading model. And if the artists want to cry about it, we're just gonna label them Luddites and we're gonna steamroll over them and not listen to a word they said. And if they had just gone about this a little differently, we wouldn't be having this conversation. My YouTube channel would not exist, which would be fucking awesome. There's way better things I could be doing with my time, but I feel that this is an important conversation and this is something I'm passionate about. And every time I see a piece of AI art or another stable diffusion user or whatever basically training their model on an artist who I respect, I get pissed off and I want to speak about it, if not yell about it a little bit. So this all could have been avoided. And DeviantArt, you just had such a clear opportunity. And I do believe that you understood this conversation completely, but chose to ignore it and also chose to try to kind of pull a fast one. And I think your community immediately saw that for what it was. Like immediately, within seconds. It didn't take days. We didn't have to learn about anything. We saw it for what it was. And as soon as, you gave us even the slightest bit of more information, that was it. Everybody was done. So you do still have an opportunity to do this. I know I've clowned you pretty bad, Moti Levy, but I think I've actually been pretty nice to you. I could have really ripped on you pretty fucking bad. I mean, you didn't appoint yourself well. But you could take this dream up thing down right now. You can absolutely just completely reverse this whole thing and say, you know what? We actually listened to you. We listened to RJ. And you know what? We fucking agree. You know what? You guys are right. This is super fucked up. And we're going to try to be a beacon, which is what they were saying. They're trying to, we are the ones who are trying to get this done right. And everyone else is bad. And we're doing this right. But it's not. You're using the bad tool, just pretending it's something else. So that's, not only is that not right, that's like another layer of fuckery. That's deception on top of not right. So you do still have an opportunity. And I would say, I would wait. And if you do this, if you were to do it the right way, I would pay to use it. I'd give you $10 a month to be able to use the tool. It'd be my pleasure. Knowing how much effort you went to make sure everybody was represented and had their opinions and voice heard, I would gladly pay $10 a month for this tool. And you had an opportunity to probably make a shitload of money and basically rally millions and millions of artists around the world to your side. But you did the opposite. You pretty much, now they're all standing around with pitchforks, or they've literally just turned their back on you, deleted their account, and walked away and said, we're done. I don't want anything to do with you. I could give a shit about your community because you could give a shit about us. So if you're listening, there's still hope. I mean, I doubt anything will come, but you do have a chance. Listen to RJ. He told it like it is, and he was very patient with you guys. And I hope you come to your senses. I mean, I don't really care, but I think it would be really good if you want to steer this very important conversation in the right direction. That's how you do it. And on that note, my friends, I wish you all very good luck, and the worst come. I'll talk to you later.